intro music? Yeah! Woohoo!
Hey Star Trek Fleet Command fans, welcome back. Look, today this video might be a little bit longer, but I want to go over an actual top 5 countdown. Well, I want to go over 5 different ways that you can improve your arenas in terms of your performance, how your alliance and your squads are doing, etc. And this is a combination of high level, low level, mid level play and tips and tricks from, say, old school things that maybe you didn't know or you forgot about. But more importantly, what I really want to get across here is showing you that you can win and at least contribute and score. Maybe you don't win 80% of your matches, but there are a lot of people out there who haven't won any. So I'm going to go over everything from crewing to tactics to the entire style of arenas. I hope you enjoy the video. If you do, go ahead and like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we will see you as we go through all these pieces. Let's go. But first off, I actually want to start with discussing crewing. And one thing I do want to be very clear on is crewing is not just PvP. So look, the main thing I run into when I talk to players about arenas is everybody gets stuck on the power side of things. Now, I'm not saying that a bigger ship can't be powerful, but as we've seen hundreds and hundreds of times over the past month of arenas running, power does not mean winning. In fact, we've seen a lot of lower levels punching up and a lot of different variety of crew sets. And whether you are on the strong side or the weak side, there is a set of crewing that you can do to find success. Number one thing I want to cover is what crewing looks like. If you have 6 docks or 8 docks, whatever, here's what you kind of want to focus on. You want to have at least half of your docks set to PvP, at least 1 loot crew dock, and preferably 1 to 2 speed crews. Let me talk about what those look like. Now, PvP crews are a little bit easy, and you see I've got several of them preset here with PvP generic 1 being, Mirror Picard with Mirror Data and Carol, or with Honor Guard Worf. PvP generic 2 being Carol, Lorca, Honor Guard Worf, the Explorer, the Battleship. Now, the PvP crews you've become accustomed to, and generally everybody 40 plus has at least some of them. You might not have all of these, but you generally have some of them. And that's just is what it is. We know that that's PvP, player versus player. But what about the others? And why am I so big on something like a loot crew or a speed crew? Well, number one, you absolutely want a speed crew because you want to be able to move fast, but not just move fast, it's the purpose of it. You can use this to distract, you can use this to get hostiles early. Remember, you want to hit those beetles, as I like to call them, but the cruisers, they give a full solo armada start immediately. And you also want a loot crew for that same purpose. Now, the loot crew, I always run on my specialty ship, and in this case, this is Cerritos. This is actually what I run every incursions, and I'm running the loot right here. You can see I've got Honor Guard, not Honor Guard Worf, I got Picard, Data, and then 5 of 11. So what happens is, let's say that I run a solo armada with the Cerritos. Now, again, these hostiles and these armadas in arenas are very easy to take down. But what happens is if I do a single solo with this crew, I then get enough to launch the group armada. Normally, you need to run 2 solos, but taking advantage of a loot crew, you can do it quickly. One of the main strategies I do want to highlight in today's video, punching hard and getting in scoring fast. So this is how I do it. If I'm going to load out my docks, I'm going to have at least 4, for me personally, set to PvP. I'm going to have my main PvP ship, which is here, and then I'm going to have all my others set up with crews. Not really as much can I win with them every match, but to make sure that if one of them goes down, I can bring another one into the fight and I'm prepared. Here's how I personally set my docks. Dock 1, which is right here, is my loot crew. The next 4 docks are all PvP. The 2 after that are speed crews. Not everybody has what we could call the meta of speed crew, which is this one. But if you've got the old Pan Navi crew, you've got Claw. There's multiple speed crews for you to run. And then last but not least, I'll just have a dock that's nothing, but I'll still use the ship in emergency situations. But you can set them up however you want. But it's so important to do that and set your docks up beforehand. Because remember, you do not get the repair speed ups unless you go after them in the faction store. So that means you got to prepare for that 2-minute repair time. Maybe they'll change the repair times later on, but we can't get stuck on this because everybody is going to get stuck on PvP. But there's way more to this than PvP. Moving on to number 2. Now, for point number 2, I want to talk about what I call zone control, which is how do you manipulate and control the map that you're actually playing on. And while Arenas isn't live, I can show you an example of the first thing I want to talk about, which is rim riding or rimming or whatever juvenile laugh you want to get in. Go ahead and grab it.
That's what she said. Excuse me? That's what she said.
But here's what I want you to focus on. Remember, if you are heading to a system, so imagine this is arena. This could be the bad guys, and this is you. You know if you click on a system, this path, you're going to come in this case, on the western side, as it were. So if you were just to hit, hey, I want to go there, well, watch what happens. I just click go to the system, and it picks a point kind of arbitrarily, sending you somewhere around the middle. But look where I came in. Pretty predictable. Did you know you can run the rim? Now, this is something that we did as a PvP tactic way back in the day. If you are coming in from the west side or the east side, you can pick any point along the rim on either direction. So for example, west side, I'm at the very top, so northwest corner, almost full north. Look at that right there. See how I can come right in on the edge? Why is this important? Well, again, zone control, if you're going as a bigger group, then they're going to probably try to camp the spots. It's a common tactic against a larger group. They're going to say, hey, we got big ships. They're just going to try to park them right over here. So if they're trying to park at the points that you would normally see a ship enter, as you saw with my Talios, it's probably going to get popped immediately. But if you're paying attention, you can rim ride. And if you're lucky, they're zoomed in, they don't even notice your ship coming in. Now, what did that do in arenas? It just made these armadas available to you, these hostiles, completely away from where they're probably camping your entry. Zone control is so important. Now, this isn't the only method that you can use. Number two, in terms of zone control, what I want you to notice is armadas. When you're launching an armada, pay attention to how the armada mechanic actually works. For example, if you were to go into an armada, so I'll use this formation armada that we're in just to give a visual. So I'm in a formation armada and the clock is ticking. Here's what you can do that you might not have known. You can actually leave the circle, and as the timer counts down, as long as you return, if you've already activated the circle, like you were already there, it registered as you were there, you don't have to necessarily be there at the 10-second mark. You can sneak in right before it launches. It will register that you were there, and you'll go. Now, this doesn't work if you try to time it. Send your ship from the home base and then get there. You need to be there at the 10-second or higher mark. But if you've already registered at the armada, then you can manipulate the timing. This is where those speed crews come in. They're chasing you, but if you got better speed, especially on a fast ship like a Talios or an NSEA, using a speed crew, you can then sneak to the armada, get in there if it's already registered that you were active, and then bam, you win.
Oh, that's a lot of damage.
Now, you can use the timing from home method, which is simply counting down when the timer is and how long it's going to take you to get to the circle. That also works, but then you have to worry about the dangers of those players camping that side of your launch point. This is a way to manipulate that armada. Last but certainly not least, when it comes to zone control, is quadrant interference and armada blocking. One mistake that I notice a lot of people make is they don't block the armadas of the opponent. Now, again, in a blank system, it's hard to visualize. So use the formation as an example. If I wanted to run this formation armada and I was with a bad alliance, I couldn't. How? Because they're all turned on. That's the same concept. Even if you don't feel like you can score, always launch armadas. If you have two ships in, you should have one of them probably doing the hostiles, especially if you're using that loot crew that I just talked about, and have the armadas active. And I personally love to turn on the armadas on their side of the map. If they can't run their armadas, they have to come to my side. It gives my team the advantage. You can also tie up the center armadas. Why is this important? Again, talking strategy. If I use that loot officer on that specialty ship and I can get that beetle or I get that solar armada done quick, my goal is to within the first 2 minutes to have both group armadas launched. Remember, there's only 10 minutes in an arena. You want to do as much as you can to activate and dominate early on. So doing that is important. Even if you can't do the armada, tie it up because you don't want them to get the points. All right, so for part 3 of this video, I want to talk about structuring your team. And I'm actually going to outsource this a little bit and include somebody else's opinions just because, well, I like my strategy and this matches up pretty fine, but I also love shouting out other people in the community. So this is Callum Dory, and they are a level 50 player who consistently with their team beats teams stronger than them. Again, pointing to the fact that there's so much strategy that plays into this, I'll include a screenshot of them beating a team of like 57s and, larger when they're a team of 50. So here's one with a 55, 57, and a 52 when their group is only 50, 50, 45. So how do you manage to do that? Big thing is how do you lay out your players? Now, as you can see on the screen, they lay theirs out in a very specific way with actual roles and tactics. And I'm pretty similar. When I'm creating a group, I want to know who's the strongest, who's the weakest, because they're going to have defined roles from the beginning. And it's okay to have a power player. And I'll talk about some cheesing methods in a little bit. But for point 3, the main thing that you're going to want to focus on is having everybody crewed correctly, but also understanding what their role is. You know, armada blocking is big, and I talked about quadrant interference in the previous point. Well, this kind of goes into it. If you got a little player, that doesn't mean they're useless. They actually can be very important and quite vital, whether their role is to be the support role, which means they're mantis stinging the bad guys, they're Cerritos boosting your power players. Maybe they brought in their Titan and they max fortified all 6 ships to give maximum survivability. Maybe they're bringing in the NSA protector to launch on that big player. Maybe you have a 57 to keep them alive, or maybe a list of other strategies. Again, using this from Callum as a reference, I think is a great tool, and it's something that you have to figure out for yourself. One thing that I'm really hoping this video stresses is, while I cannot guarantee that you're going to win all your matches, that's obviously impossible for me to get everybody to start winning, you can actually do better than you think you can. It's something that I say all the time. You are better than you think you are, and this is no different. With arenas, there's a lot of ways that you can punch up, and it comes down to building strategies with your team. If you're looking to be the most optimal, well, these are some of the things that you want to look at. And again, there's not a particular set way. There's not a perfect way. There are a lot of tips and tricks you can get from this video. And again, just to give Callum a shout out, just wanted them to go ahead and have that port. Since they took the time to write it out for me, might as well give them a little bit of love. But let's move on to part 4. Not that this part wasn't important, but let's talk about part 4. All right, so part 4, I want to really get everybody to understand the game itself. And I'm calling this matchmaking manipulation. So what that means is there's multiple ways that you can run these groups. So obviously as the leader, it's +7, -7. However, when it comes to pairing up, a couple things go into the matchmaking. Number 1, ops level. That matters. And also your ranking at itself. So if I'm gold 4, that's going to, be part of the process of how it matches. But you can rig the matchmaking system in your favor to a degree. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say that your best player in your alliance is a level 56 or 57. However, if they group up with all their 56s and 57s, maybe they end up facing a lot of 60s or 62s. But what if that 57 matches up with 2 50s? So what that does is 50 plus 50 plus 57 lowers the average ops level, meaning that you can bring a really powerful player, a good support player, and then a good role player. And then you're probably going to be facing people who are lower. Now, there are differences in terms of how well this can be put on. If you made it to platinum or high gold, odds are you're not going to cheese the matchmaking that well. But for a lot of you, this video is focused on players who either have never really done arenas or 2 are trying to get better at arenas. This is a way that you can kind of cheese it just a little bit. Understand that it's more than just ops level that plays into this. It's also your matchmaking ranking. And when you take into consideration how many of these alliances that are out there who are having players who are able to punch up due to strategy, well, that can also play to your hand as well, meaning that you're going to end up facing like-minded players or like-level players, but you can pick on the people who aren't doing the strategy, right? So you can take this to your advantage. Now, I don't necessarily play this way, not that I believe it's bad, but my typical run is a 50, 53, and a 56 or 57. So 1 G4, 1 low G5, and then a mid G5 is typically what I run for my groups. Doesn't mean I can't run other things. I could do a 53, a 60, and get really crazy and bring a 46. If that 46 was really in tune with a strategy, it would actually work quite well. They could bring their Cerritos with a loot crew, have armadas running, and I could be going crazy with my Vorcha being amazing. Vorcha, we appreciate your attempt. Oh, I'm bragging about that for the next 30 years! Oh my God! Oh, get wrecked! I don't care if it's a speed crew. Get wrecked, son! Screenshot. Clip it now. Clip it. Screenshot it. All the things. But understand that the matchmaking of this game can play to your advantage. Not everybody thinks that way because they just get used to seeing those big ships. And don't worry, I'll run too. If I get paired with a 66 that has a rare G6, I know there's very little I can do. I'm still gonna put up a fight. But point 4 here is understanding the levels and matchmaking and how you can cheese the levels. Having a really high with 2 lows is going to allow you to get really beneficial ops level averaging, which can help, especially if you're starting off at the bronze level. Let's move on to point 5 because this video is already quite long. Last and certainly not least, what ships do you use? That, I think, is a question that everybody needs to ask themselves, because again, so many people with arenas get so stuck on PvP and the PvP crews and our PvP ships. And I'm not saying those aren't important, but I would argue the most important ships in arenas for any team is their loot and their speed ships. That doesn't mean that pure PvP power doesn't matter. It does. You need to be able to go destroy things. Don't forget, you get points for PvP wins. However, the most important thing you can do, and this is why support players and strategy are so vital, is have things like the Cerritos. Not only the Cerritos, another one that I use quite heavily is going to be my Mantis, because I can sting opponents and really hurt their ability to deal offensive firepower. What do I try to do at the start of the round if I'm the role guy, if I'm the support guy? Well, I want to Cerritos boost my strongest ship and sting their weakest ship. Because here's what I've learned in arenas. Most people who do arenas don't watch content creators. They're not high-end PvP players, and they're just there for the rewards, which is fine. We're not shaming them. But one thing that I noticed that happens, if you early on in the match punch them in the mouth, they get scared. Now, I'm a good example of this because I have a tier 5 Vorcha. It's not a super strong ship. I know to some of you who are level 46, you go, oh man, that Vorcha is super strong. Keep in mind that the people that I run into in the arenas can have 1 billion size Rotarans. That doesn't mean you can't beat them though. And what tends to happen in arenas with a lot of players, you punch them in the mouth early, they then worry that they can't beat you for whatever reason. Maybe they think that you have the Tantalus Field maxed out and the Q Cannon. Because not everybody takes the time to scan their opponent and see what's actually on the ship. They just see, hey, that Vorcha beat my 600, 700 million power Sanctus, or that time I beat that 1 billion Rotar and I won't stop bragging about. And that causes you to second guess. Naturally, when you're in a timed event, most players aren't going to sit there and try to dissect the battle log. Use that to your advantage, and this is why the role players are so important. The strategy plays into this. Now, it's not just these two ships. You also have the Titan that can be a fantastic addition to this run, allowing you to get significantly more damage for your entire team using fortification or max fortification. But it goes beyond that. I mentioned before, the NSCA has a fantastic ability that you can take advantage of, allowing you to get survivability up, and away, especially if you put it on one of your higher level players who's done more of the research and, you know, can actually get more whole health out of it at the end. And last but not least, the Borg Cube for your higher level players can be very devastating with its cutting beam. So the ships are critically important, but don't get stuck on the, oh, well, my biggest ship with the biggest PvP crew, well, it failed, and now I'm not able to contribute in arenas. You are. You don't have to be the best PvP player if you have great strategy. Again, using some of the tools that we've talked about here. Now, you do have to be careful. When do you sting? When do you do your buffs? Well, I would recommend things like Cerritos buff and your Mantis buff happening as soon as the match starts. And if you're going to use max fortification, same thing, because you want to take away their PvP ships as quickly as possible, putting them on a 2-minute timer to recover them. That gives you more opportunity to score big points. And optimally, every single one of you should be trying to score 1,000 points in under 5 minutes. It might sound crazy, but good teams with high strategy do this. And when you see a lot of these teams on the leaderboards, they're like, how are all these level 40s and 50s in the top 100 of arenas? Strategy, strategy, strategy. You can't win every match, but if you win more than you lose, well, that's how you climb the ratings. And that's how I've made it to the 10th best player on server 20. Even though I am not the best PvPer on this server, I do operate with high-end strategy with this alliance to the point that I'm top 10. Now, my goal is to stay there and get even better, but it all comes down to little strategies like this. Now, this video did not encompass all the various strategies that teams use, but hopefully gives you a piece and pieces of what you and your team can do to do better. There are some obvious things like being in voice chat that can greatly complement each other's playstyles and help you have quicker reaction times and better in-game play. And obviously, none of this video can help if things like lag hit you. However, hopefully you take from this video some of the keys and tools to be better in arenas, thus taking advantage of the very good rewards that the Empire can give you. Yes, the Terran Empire. Lots of good juicy juices in here. I mean, all the premium dust and being able to get like 28,000 Cynic XP every day, all this, some good stuff in here. But Gotta do the arenas to get it. If you have questions, comments, etc., drop them down below. Love and appreciate every single one of you. Live long and plunder. Stay safe with the Space Cowboys. Deuces. That's me. Catch you on the next Star Trek Leaky Man video, and I'm out.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.